Hello everyone and welcome to Who Wore It Better, the weekly segment in which I review Raw and SmackDown back to back and try and figure out which show won for the week. And folks, I tell you, that Festival of Friendship, man, still hits you right in the feels. Kevin Owens starts things off on Raw with a terrific, chilling promo, just the way they shot it and composed it with the spotlight and the suit and the belt. Everything I thought was just pitch perfect, just for the aesthetic, for the look of this promo here. Kevin Owens talking a lot about Goldberg, saying basically he just has to outlast Goldberg in order to defeat him. Says nothing about Chris Jericho, just drops the mic, so it leaves you wanting more, wondering why, Kevin, why? So we don't get that answer just yet, so it just leaves you wanting more. But yeah, again, it's great stuff. Probably my favorite Kevin Owens promo since he's been on the main roster. Cesaro and Sheamus taking on Enzo and Cass in a rare face versus face match to determine the number one contenders for the tag team titles. Enzo, much like he was last week in his match against Cesaro in singles action, was just a great big punching bag for the whole thing. Enzo and Cass actually win, much to my surprise. Cass hits a big side slam on Cesaro to win the match. I mean, I don't know if they're going to win the tag titles right away. I think, honestly, this team is so over, you could not have them win the championships at all for the next 100 years, and they'd still be tremendously over. Anyway, after that, Enzo talks some trash on the outside and gets hit with the mother of all brogue kicks by Sheamus. It was a thing of beauty, just how he was just like plastered by that brogue kick. It was great. I almost want to jot that part down as a pro for Raw on its own. Just brogue kick to Enzo, put that as a pro. It's not big enough though for me to count as a pro, so I'm just gonna say it was a good moment. Cruiserweight time. I'm just gonna lump the two segments from Raw into this little bit here. Starts off with a match between Brian Kendrick and Akira Tozawa. Fallout from last week's 205 Live when Tozawa rejected Kendrick's proposal to become his mentor, and it's fall from that. Match doesn't really go anywhere because Kendrick immediately starts beating up on Tozawa before the bell rings, chokes him out with the captain's hook, the bully choke, whatever you want to call it, and that was pretty much that. I'm like, boy, they changed the ropes for that. Then there was the Cruiserweight Championship contract signing for Fastlane between Jack Gallagher and Neville. There were some good points here. I like the fact that Neville called out Jack Gallagher for being this British stereotype, the whole pip pip cheerio and everything. Then near the end, as they're talking and getting more confrontational, Neville shoves the table aside. It hits the ropes. I was really disappointed it didn't bounce back and just land right in between them again. That would have been amazing. Anyway, they fight for a bit. Jack Gallagher hits Neville with a stiff headbutt, and so Gallagher kind of wins the segment. In a rematch from last week, Roman Reigns taking on Anderson and Gallows, the tag champions, in a 2-on-1 match. Roman said backstage, "I don't need a partner to fight you two. I'm going to fight you by myself." And that's what he does for a little bit, but eventually the match ends when Roman Reigns disqualifies himself. He grabs a chair that Anderson and Gallows brought in and wallops both of them with it. Then he hits Anderson, who's flying through midair, catches him with an awesome spear. I mean, like, say what you want about the finish. I thought the spear itself looked really awesome. A lot of people were pissed off by this match, saying, "Oh, the tag team champions got buried by Roman Reigns. He beat him up by himself. And this is the worst thing ever. Oh, the champions get buried." Here's the thing. I've watched Raw for long enough to know there's a precedent to this. So in my opinion, if you're the tag team champions and you get beat up by one of the top singles guys in the company and you don't end the night by getting sodomized with a flagpole, then you're a winner. I'll agree it wasn't the best look for the last 2 weeks for Anderson and Gallows to get punked out by Roman Reigns, but then again, this week on Raw, like, Roman used a chair to beat them up and get the upper hand. It's not like he did it all by himself, John Cena style. He used a weapon to get the upper hand on these two heels. And the thing is, I mentioned before last week that there is a clear segregation between like the tag division and the singles division and the cruiserweight division and everything else. The thing is, like, there is such little blending and overlap between these two divisions that, like, they all might as well just be on different planes of existence. So when Roman Reigns beats up the tag team champions, in the long run, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't hurt the tag team champions because the tag champs are just going to go right back to the tag division and fight Enzo and Cass and Cesaro and Sheamus and New Day and whoever else is on that spectrum of the tag scene. And Roman Reigns is going to go right back and do whatever he does in the singles scene. I'm not trying to be a Roman Reigns apologist or a fanboy. I'm just saying this is the situation we have here. You've got this storyline between Roman and Braun Strowman, and you have this thing leading up to their match at Fastlane. Right now, the story is that Roman Reigns cannot get the upper hand on Braun Strowman. Braun just swats him down, and we'll see this later in the night as well, and we saw it last week. Braun is holding up his end of the bargain by beating everyone up in his path, including Roman Reigns. Now, at the same time, what they should be doing with Roman is that at the same time on this parallel track to Braun, that Roman should also be beating up everyone in sight, except for Braun Strowman. That's where he falters. So he can beat up everyone else he can, but he just can't get over the hump and beat Braun Strowman, and he can't get the upper hand on Braun Strowman. So what you have to do with Roman is he has has to beat up some people who matter. So who do you have him fight then? If not the tag team champions, who do you fight that A, fans will approve of, like, yes, I'm okay with you making this guy job out, but are also of significance, if that makes any sense. Like, you know, if you can't beat up Anderson Gallows, Roman Reigns isn't going to beat up the Shining Stars and look good. He's not going to beat up, you know, the Golden Truth and look good. He's got to beat up a formidable tag team, so go after the tag team champion. The whole idea is he should be looking strong going in this parallel track to Braun Strowman, but he's not, because he's losing all the time. Like, he lost to Kevin Owens, he lost to Chris Jericho, he's lost to Anderson Gallows by DQ, so it's like he's not really pulling his weight in the storyline with Braun Strowman. Braun's kicking ass every which way, and Roman Reigns, in a way, is beating people up, but it's not decisive. It is not like, it's not a feel-good victories for him, or if he has victories at all. So I get why people are upset about the whole thing with Anderson and Gallows. I agree to an extent, but at the same time, I also disagree. I think people are overreacting. The New Day were announced as the hosts for WrestleMania this year. I find it weird that the most over tag team in the company are not seemingly getting a match at WrestleMania this year, taking on Rusev and Jinder Mahal, and then they're playing into the whole Russian hacking headlines, ripped from the headlines of today's stories, today's newspapers, with Lana apparently having hacked into the New Day's iPad to get the ice cream blueprints. There's a funny spot near the end where Xavier scares Lana with a trombone. She tosses the iPad in the air, Xavier catches it and then breaks it. He breaks the iPad. The iPad, I mean, there's got to be something very satisfying about breaking a very expensive piece of technology like the iPad, because, you know, I think, you know, with your phones and your tablets, you're kind of like conditioned to treat them with kid gloves and be very careful with them and stuff. So imagine, you know, getting, you know, told you have to destroy this iPad with your bare hands. It's got to be very satisfying in a way if you're Xavier Woods. The New Day win the day with the midnight hour on Jinder Mahal, and the ice cream plans keep moving along. Bayley comes out to celebrate her newly won women's championship, gives a very familiar, similar speech to when Sasha Banks first won the women's title about, oh, I was a kid chasing my dreams. I did all this to work really hard to get where I am. Stephanie McMahon intervenes because, of course, she does. It's a women's segment on Raw, is it not? So, yeah, the bylaws state you gotta have Stephanie involved, of course. She tries to guilt Bayley into relinquishing the championship because she won it under controversial circumstances when Sasha hit Charlotte in the boob with the crutch the previous week before the Bayley to belly. And the fact that they're bringing this up and teasing the fact that, you know, oh, you have to give the belt up because you won it in this way is such garbage. Like, think about, you know, the most reminiscent to me from last week's title win for Bayley was when Mankind beat The Rock in '99 on Monday Night Raw, and he won after an assist from Stone Cold Steve Austin. Did The Rock stamp his feet and say, you got to give me the belt back because Austin hit me and it was he cheated and everything? No, there was none of that. Vince McMahon didn't come out and demand Mankind relinquish the belt. They fought for it, you know, at the pay-per-view a few weeks later. After Sasha Banks comes out and says, nah, fam, don't be giving the belt up, you know, then Bayley teases she's gonna give the belt up, but she doesn't. She's, nah, I'm keeping this thing, which at the same time kind of flies in the face of everything she just said. It's like, I want to be a hero and a role model to people, but I'm gonna keep this thing anyway, even though Stephanie kind of made a good point. Anyway, this leads to a match between Charlotte and Sasha Banks. Boy, the restraint for the Raw writing staff to wait a whole 2 months after their big feud ender at Roadblock to have this match happen once again. I mean, who would have guessed with such a lack of depth in the women's roster on Raw? I mean, it's amazing they waited this long. Not much to say about the match. You've seen it many, many times before. The match ends when Dana Brooke slowly makes her way to the ring to try and interfere. Bayley, who's at the announce table, cuts her off, beats her up, and then Sasha hits Charlotte with a Banks statement. Charlotte taps out to Sasha Banks again on Raw, and that's where the match ends. Diamond Dallas Page announced for the Hall of Fame this year. Another great induction. I mean, for a guy just looking at his career, his tangible accomplishments in wrestling, that speaks for itself when you consider all the stuff he has done after wrestling, life after wrestling, what he's done to help out Jake Roberts and Scott Hall in the well-documented builds to their rebuilding, the resurrection of their lives and their careers, and of course the countless others he's helped with DDP Yoga just out there in the universe out there. So yeah, again, a great addition to the Hall of Fame. I'm loving this Hall of Fame class so far. Kevin Owens versus Sami Zayn in a match that, again, like Charlotte Sasha Banks, we weren't supposed to see for a while, but for some reason this match was just signed to happen anyway. The match never really gets underway though, because as Sami Zayn comes out, Samoa Joe attacks him from behind in retaliation for the promo Sami cut moments before, mostly on Samoa Joe, a little bit though on Kevin Owens, but mostly on Samoa Joe, even though his opponent was Kevin Owens for the night. Anyway, Samoa Joe beats up Sami Zayn. Zayn, like an idiot, decides he wants to keep going with the match. Kevin Owens very quickly destroys Sami Zayn, hits him with a pop-up powerbomb, wins the match. It's a good look for Samoa Joe, continuing the whole like just killer look, and also makes Kevin Owens look even more sadistic and evil after what we saw last week and then in the opener for Raw tonight. A couple of quick back-to-back promos happening here. First, there's this very intense backstage segment between Mick Foley and Stephanie McMahon. Mick Foley finally standing up to the lies and the deceit and the corruption by Stephanie McMahon, and Stephanie basically threatens that Mick Foley will be horribly injured and it will look like an accident. Kind of scary stuff. Then later on, we see the backstage interview with Michael Cole, starting to interview Heyman and Lesnar, but Cole's scared off, and basically for the next couple, 2 or 3 minutes, Paul Heyman says that Brock Lesnar is not scared of Bill Goldberg and he will defeat Bill Goldberg. All the time while this is happening, Lesnar is giving the viewers those bedroom eyes. Main event time as Braun Strowman took on the Big Show, the very ripped Big Show, in a singles match. And I gotta tell you, I think when I first saw that this was gonna be the main event, I think I, along with many other people, didn't think much that was going to happen in this match. I didn't think it was going to be very good. We saw what happened last week with, Strowman and Mark Henry. What could we possibly see out of Big Show and Strowman? But boy, were we proven wrong. First of all, great chain wrestling by these two massive men. Couldn't believe that stuff. Headlock takeovers and arm wrenches. What am I seeing here? I mean, this is a hell of a match. Both guys are taking ridiculous bumps for each other. Strowman kicks out of a chokeslam and a KO punch as he's jumping from the second rope. Big Show taking just some straight up like shoulder tackles. The bumps looked insane. He took 2 power slams. He eventually lost to Braun Strowman in a match that actually, this match I got 2 This Is Awesome chants. 1 before they even locked up. This match totally defied all expectations. It was way more entertaining than it had any right to be. And so I was left with a smile on my face after this match. The celebration doesn't last very long for Strowman because Roman Reigns immediately comes out and immediately gets wrecked by Braun Strowman again. And so, like I said earlier in the Raw portion of this review, Strowman is looking great. He's holding his end of the bargain up in this feud, but Roman Reigns is not winning enough matches that aren't Strowman related. He's not doing enough on his own to make him look equally strong. It's like he's not only looking weak against Strowman, he's looking kind of weak against everyone else. And that's a bad look for this guy who's supposed to be looking strong. SmackDown opens up with an emotional moment as Daniel Bryan introduces the women's champion Naomi. It turns out that her knee injury is worse than, I guess, people originally thought, so she did have to relinquish the women's championship due to injury. It's a real shame that, Naomi didn't get the chance to really do anything with the championship reign, didn't get to be the champion going into WrestleMania. As far as we know, this is going to happen. Possibly won't be the champion going into WrestleMania in her hometown, so it is sad that someone who has worked for as long as she has to not get that chance to really do anything with the belt before having to give it up due to injury. We've seen that many, many times in the history of wrestling, and it never gets any easier. So get well soon, Naomi. But as she's walking out, Alexa Bliss comes in and just scoops up all that sweet, sweet heel heat, just basically making fun of Naomi for her injury, demanding that the women's championship be brought back to her. Sounds kind of familiar. It's a very similar vein to what happened on Raw with Charlotte. But Daniel Bryan says you're going to fight for the championship right now against Becky Lynch for the vacant championship. A good opening match here for the show. Fast and furious action by both ladies. Nothing we haven't seen from these two before. No dislocated looking elbows this time around. The match ends when Alexa Bliss grabs the ring apron, pulls it into the ring with her. She's getting dragged in by Lynch as the referee is distracted with that. Bliss hits Lynch with a throat thrust, rolls her up, holds the tights, and Bliss is now your 2-time SmackDown Women's Champion. She won the belt there, and so now we'll see how that carries over into WrestleMania. Meanwhile, Mickie James tries to jump Becky Lynch after the match, and she fails. American Alpha taking on Breezango. This match actually showed some promise early on because it started a little different than your typical American Alpha match. Started out with Breezango beating up Jordan and Gable beforehand, just kind of shit-canning Gable for the first few minutes. So for a little bit, you get this 2-on-1 environment between Jordan and both members of Breezango. Then all of a sudden, just they hit a switch and Grand Amplitude, no, not Grand Amplitude, I'm sorry. It was the Steiner brothers, bulldog from the top rope electric chair drop combo. So American Alpha wins, but immediately they're interrupted by the Usos, who come through the crowd and deliver this amazing promo. I'm not going to try and repeat any of it because it won't do it justice. These guys definitely rehearsed because they were just definitely on point, just on top of each other's cues. Boom, boom, boom. It was great. If you have the chance to watch it on YouTube or on DVR, do, because it was a really cool promo from this team that we haven't been made to care about that much lately. And this is the second week in a row now where the Usos interrupt, or they kind of intrude on American Alpha, cut a promo, and then you think they're going to have a confrontation, a physical confrontation, and then it just doesn't happen. I thought it was very odd. Last week it was more awkward because it felt like they were going to come out and then it didn't happen. This week they were within feet of each other and then nothing happens. I don't get who's directing that or producing those segments, but don't end them that way at all. Falls Count Anywhere match as Natalya taking on Nikki Bella in what I guess could be a feud ender here. This match was action-packed from the very beginning. No wasted time at the beginning here. Nikki Bella going for a table early on under the ring. Natalya stops her and just gently puts the table back, but she is walloped by Nikki Bella with a kendo stick. They just go all over the place here, all around the ring, in the ring. They do some stuff in the crowd. There's this one moment where Nikki is very audibly calling a spot to Natalya, just like your boyfriend John Cena. This match was so physical throughout. They teased at one point a powerbomb into the announce table from Natalya to Nikki Bella. That doesn't happen, but Nikki does hit Natalya with the Alabama Slam onto the table. Table doesn't break. They wind up going into the backstage area. They wind up shoving Maurice, who's walking by a second time in the last few weeks that Maurice has been in the wrong place in the wrong time. First it was powder, and then this week she actually got laid out, and then what happens next is Natalya gets shoved face first into a mirror, and she still kicks out of that. They wind up going back out into the arena area. Nikki has Natalya in the Fearless Lock, and just before Natalya taps, Maurice comes out with this giant lead pipe and just beats the shit out of Nikki Bella, pulls a Tanya Harding, as David Otunga described so eloquently. Miz pulls her away. Natalya beats Nikki Bella in this match, so Natalya wins under shady circumstances, but now it's very clear, and you'll see it again in the main event, where they're going with Nikki Bella and Maurice come WrestleMania time. Main event time, a 10-man battle royal to determine a new #1 contender to Bray Wyatt's championship after Randy Orton relinquished his right to fight at WrestleMania. They did a very good job throughout the whole show hyping this battle royal, going to quick little interviews with each of the competitors in this thing. It was a very old school feel. This match, in my opinion, did a great job continuing a lot of current storylines and taking those storylines and really elevating them to the next level in some cases, continuing the Dolph Ziggler feud against Kalisto and Apollo Crews, continuing the Baron Corbin, Dean Ambrose stuff, because Ambrose eliminates Baron Corbin, but Corbin gets the end of days on him, so he gets his heat back a little bit there. The Miz, this is the new development here. The Miz was eliminated by John Cena, but later Cena was eliminated by The Miz, who wasn't even in the match anymore. So now the seeds are there. We're definitely seeing this is where it's going. We've heard for a couple weeks now the rumors of at WrestleMania it's going to be an intergender tag match between Cena and Nikki Bella versus The Miz and Maurice, now we're seeing these wheels turning between the Falls Count Anywhere match and the Battle Royal. That's what seems to be happening. The final 3 men in the Battle Royal are Dean Ambrose, AJ Styles, and Luke Harper. Harper eliminates Ambrose after all 3 of them at one point are on the apron in kind of a very tense spot, and then for a long time you get this war of attrition between Styles and Harper, the final 2, and then you have this spot in the corner where they both fall out, and the whole idea is they're both supposed to hit the floor at the same time. And what they wound up doing was they said, they hit the floor at the same time, so we got to declare this match a draw and we'll determine a winner the next week. And that would have all been well and good. However, if you actually watched this match, you would know that just looking at it, that AJ Styles hit first by a mile. There's no question about that. He hit the floor first. You want to know how we know that? Because they never went to a replay. We've seen these kind of things before in Battle Royals where there's a draw and they got a split screen, who hit the floor first, and they never did that with this one. It was just a bunch of referees going, ugh, and then Daniel Bryan comes out and it's a draw. If they showed a replay, it would have been blatantly obvious, even more so than just watching it live, that Styles hit the floor first. But we got to have that intrigue, and I get the fact, you don't want to totally screw up what your plans are for the next week. So I get that, but it's unfortunate, and I wouldn't mind a draw finish, if that actually happened legit, if they both hit the floor at the same time, like was planned, and they actually said, we got to do a do-over next week. I wouldn't fine with that, but the fact that the finish was so botched And a rare botch coming from AJ Styles, by the way, a rare blemish. Not that it was his fault necessarily, just saying, like, but it was just, it's so awkward to have the match, which was good. I loved the Battle Royal, and then to have it end on this just, no, it would have been a downer enough to have it end on a legit draw, but at least it would have been legit and we would have had that entry going into next week. But it's just so obviously screwed up. And so they got to try and cover their tracks next week. Time now for me to decide which show won for the week, Raw or SmackDown. And folks, this week was actually a pretty tough one for me. Previous weeks, in the last couple of weeks, it's been easier for me to decide who wins. This week was tough because Raw was more or less kind of a boring show, punctuated with a couple of really cool high spots here and there. Meanwhile, SmackDown was a more consistently entertaining show with a real huge letdown of a finish. So trying to just take those things into account made it difficult for me to pick a winner this week, but ultimately I do have to say SmackDown won this week. Let me tell you about Raw first of all. I love the Kevin Owens promo, the New Day iPad chicanery with Lana, and you know, the Russian hacker joke. It was cheap, but I still got a pop out of it. I still pop for it. Big Show versus Braun Strowman. Oh my God, like, I'm part of a generation that grew up watching a million Kane and Big Show matches, you know, and they were never any good. And you could also make an argument that the Kane and Undertaker matches we saw over the years weren't that great either. So, like, when you see Braun Strowman and Big Show on the sheet, you wonder, what are they going to do here? It was the main event. It was primed to be a letdown. But holy shit, like, they actually delivered. Like, Big Show's in the best shape of his life. Braun Strowman's doing kip-ups, and they're doing chain wrestling, and they're doing the big bumps. And I didn't care for the Roman Reigns, Anderson, and Gallows stuff, because again, I'm not too big a fan of Roman beating up the two of them. I'm not as mad about it as others are. I think it could have been a lot worse. Again, they weren't sodomized with a flagpole, so they came out looking peachy keen as far as I'm concerned. The women's stuff, I mean, we've seen Charlotte and Sasha hundreds of times before at this point, it feels like. It just felt like this one was kind of thrown together. Again, Stephanie McMahon interjecting herself into this feud. I guess the depth on the roster is so bad on Raw, you've got to throw her in there to have like a more of a foil. I don't know. Meanwhile, on SmackDown, I really enjoyed both the women's matches, especially the Falls Count Anywhere match. That was a very physical, hard-hitting match that was a lot of fun to watch. I loved the Usos promo. Again, the weird blocking of how, like, you thought they were going to fight, but they didn't. That was kind of a weird drawback there. I loved the Battle Royal up until the finish. Yeah, the finish, the Battle Royal just, like, killed it for me. It was so obvious. Styles hit first. They're going to find some way to justify the draw still having happened in their demented little minds, even though just looking with your eyes, you saw that wasn't the case. The fact they never showed a replay was the biggest giveaway. And again, you know, the fact that Naomi had to drop the title so soon, that's not like a storyline issue, but it is a con for this show. It's beyond their control, but at the same time, it just sucks to have your plans for Naomi and for whoever just to have it be changed so abruptly because of an injury. It's unfortunate, so I have to give them a con for that one. But overall, I think SmackDown was a better show. Just, man, that ending, ooh, made it a real nail-biter between that and Raw, in my opinion. Let me know what you thought about Raw and SmackDown this week in the comments section below. Don't forget to vote for which show you thought won in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. Be sure to thumbs up this video if you like it, subscribe to Wrestling with Regret, and buy the t-shirts at ProWrestlingTees.com. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.